Hey guys, what is going on? Welcome back to Viltendo. I'm Vil, and in this video, what we're going to be talking about is ranking every single third evolution of the starter Pokemon. And in this particular one, we're only going to be going by the fire types. So that is Charizard, Typhlosion, Blaziken, Infernape, Mbor, Delphox, Incineroar, and Cinderace. We're going to be going through all of these. We're going to be ranking them. I'll be giving you my reasoning for those, and we're going to rank them worst to best. So let's just get right into it. First off, we're going to have with the absolute worst third Evo of a fire type Pokemon, for starters anyway, is going to be Mbor. Now, Mbor, if you don't know, is from the 5th generation of Pokemon, Black, White, Black 2, and White 2. And Mbor's main problem lie with its stats. It has a massive range for HP and its attack and its special attack. All of the rest of its stats are the lowest among any starter Pokemon, with 65 being that number. So what we have is one of the weirdest move pools in the way that, because of its low defense and special defense and low speed, typically your Mbor is never going to have priority. It's never going to be going first in battle. And with its myriad of type weaknesses, it's actually more than likely going to get one shot in most cases because its defense and special defense are so low. It's very slow, it's very soft, and it can get one shot just by so many different moves. And its stats definitely don't support its move pool. It has a lot more moves that would definitely take care of those coverages, but the problem is that you don't even have enough time to use most of them, especially when you have 2-turn moves that you can't set up. For example, Solar Beam you can set up with Sunny Day, and you would have to take in a totally separate Pokemon to set up that Sunny Day, switch over to Mbor and pray that it doesn't get hit by then, and there's more than likely going to be 2 moves affecting Mbor before you actually can get that Solar Beam off. There's going to be the initial switch when you bring Mbor in, and there's going to be the time where Mbor, more than likely, in more cases than not, is not going to be going first against its opponent. It's absolutely frustrating because Gen 5, and I'm going to say this now, Gen 5 is probably my favorite set of the Pokemon games. The Unova region, I love it. I love the Pokemon. But Mbor, compared to its fellow Fire-type starters, just doesn't stack up. Next up, we have the following gen, which is Delphox from Generation 6, and those are Pokemon X and Y, as well as, to a lesser degree, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Now, Delphox is a very good idea. It broke a 3-generation chain that went over, I want to say, nearly 10 years of firefighting starters. So it definitely was refreshing to see a Fire Psychic third Evo for these starters. And the thing is that its stats are almost balanced in its favor. They're the complete opposite of Mbor, which is really weird because whereas Mbor has this massive HP, attack, and special attack, Delphox has massive special attack, special defense, and speed, I should say. The problem is that its other stats are just low enough that it's still not going to be able to stack up. Now, while it can tank more powerful moves of the special variety, it could probably get one shot by a single Hydro Pump. Any kind of water-type move that hits for above probably 80 would wipe it in a single hit. There's also a lot of Dark-type moves that are physical that a lot of Pokemon have access to, like Bite and Crunch, that would just absolutely stomp it. It doesn't have great coverage either. Actually, by leveling it up, it exclusively learns fire and psychic type moves for attacking. The only other move that it learns for attacking is Scratch, which is normal, except it starts with that. That's its starting level 5 move, and it only has 40 attack. You're not going to keep Scratch for the whole game. So unless you're using TMs and TRs, if Delphox is added to a game that does have TRs, that is, you're not really going to be getting a lot of use out of Delphox in Gen 6 or Gen 7. It just doesn't stack up to all the other Pokemon available with much better coverage, many less defenses, and just all around better Pokemon with better stat distributions. It's really sad because Delphox, in theory, is one of the better Pokemon, but unfortunately, there's just so many Pokemon that do it better. Which brings us to our next one, which is going to be actually all the way back from Gen 2. We have Typhlosion, the third evolution of Cyndaquil. Now, something interesting about Typhlosion is it is one of 2 fire-type starters that never gains another type through evolution or starting out. There's one other fire starter that does this, and we'll get to them in a little bit. But Typhlosion is definitely the lesser of the monotypes. Now, if you don't know, monotype means it's only one type. Mono, one type. But yeah, Typhlosion doesn't have a great moveset, unfortunately. Statistically, it does have some good moves when it comes to stat lowering. Learning Smokescreen very early on, and I think every single generation that it's in, which is amazing. Smokescreen is a very great ability. The problem is that its special attack and speed just don't stack up compared to many of the Pokemon it's placed against, and especially considering the speed of most water types. See, Typhlosion, along with many other fire type Pokemon, there's only one that actually can't learn this move. But it can learn Solar Beam, which again is a 2-type setup, or a 2-move setup, unless you're running Sunny Day with another Pokemon and then the switching and blah blah blah. But unfortunately, its speed sets it behind so that it more than likely is going to get one-shot. It's so disappointing because it's so cool. Cyndaquil, Quilava, and Typhlosion are some of the coolest designs we've ever seen in the Pokemon series. And unfortunately, the moves and stats that have been provided to it just don't allow it to succeed in an environment that it should be able to succeed in. As a fire-type Pokemon early on in Pokemon's life cycle, it definitely should have been better set. But the problem is the wide availability of rock, ground, water types are just setting it way behind. And the fact that it's only really strong against steel, grass, and ice, 3 types that honestly not a lot of people run. I understand grass types are very common, but at the same time, you don't see a whole lot of people running grass types. You'll see people using grass type moves with fire Pokemon, such as the other Pokemon on this list, but you're not likely to see many grass type Pokemon. Steel, it does have the advantage over, I will give it that, but at the same time, I just don't think Typhlosion is very viable as a fire type starter in the Pokemon series. Next on, we have the better monotype, and this is from Gen 8, so Sword and Shield. This is going to be Cinderace. Now, Cinderace has a very cool design, and I didn't really want to touch on design, but also it's like a soccer player, and it's kind of neat because Sword and Shield is based on, I believe, Scotland, which is weird because Scotland doesn't really have a whole lot of a soccer scene to it, but Europe, they kind of just lumped it together. It's just a neat design. I like it. Now, Cinderace is definitely the better of the monotypes. Again, one singular, it's only a fire type. Despite almost looking like it could be a fighting type, which was a speculation that a lot of people had going into the Sword and Shield era. But the thing is that Cinderace has decent moves. It has less weaknesses than many of the other Pokemon on this list, and it does have good stats with its attack and speed. It's built perfectly for the moves that it's able to learn. But one of its main problems is that it is the only Pokemon on this list that can't learn a move that counters ground. This is the only Pokemon on this list that can't learn Solar Beam, which is really weird because there's even I think Typhlosion can learn Grass Knot. There's so many other moves that should be able to counter ground type, or that do counter ground type, that Cinderace just isn't able to learn. One advantage that Cinderace does have over many of the other Pokemon on this list is its signature move, and that is Pyro Ball, and that's one of the most powerful fire-type moves in the game, with a very good accuracy. I believe it's 90%. So with the wide lens, you can definitely have Cinderace hitting one-hit KOs on Pokemon that it's not even very effective against. But with the coverages, it kind of ranks just a little bit lower because it quite simply can't counter ground, and that's such an essential thing with the amount of Pokemon that can learn moves such as Bulldoze and Earthquake, it just puts it at a huge disadvantage in most types of situations. There's so many Pokemon that can learn these other moves. And Cinderace, while good and statistically has very high speed and attack, it just can't compete with some of the other Pokemon on this list. Which brings us on to the fourth ranking Pokemon on this list, and that is Incineroar from the 7th generation of Pokemon, which are the Alola games, so Sun, Moon, Ultra Sun, and Ultra Moon. And Incineroar actually is one of 2 Pokemon on this list that have made it in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Pretty cool. Incineroar evolves from Litten, which is just a mono fire type, I believe, and it becomes fire dark. It has some pretty good moves, actually. It has this move called Darkest Lariat, which is just a really good dark type move, and the design of Incineroar is kind of based around like a wrestler, like a fighter, basically. So it looked like it was going to be fighting type and then fire dark, which is a surprisingly adept move pool. It does have some very good moves, and the typing definitely sets it up quite a bit. With the moves that it can learn, it can counter just about anything you throw at it. It's actually kind of insane. The main problem with Incineroar is that while it does have barely balanced stats when it comes to its attack and special attack, which is good because it can learn Flamethrower by leveling up, the problem is that its speed stat is actually incredibly low. I mean, it's comparable to Mbor, which is a little bit disappointing because if it were just a little bit faster, if you took some of those values and transfer them to speed, or you have some kind of nature that can bolster your speed, it will definitely be better. But the problem is that because of this speed, it has so much potential for one-hit knockouts. It's insane because water, fighting, which are both fairly common types of moves that Pokemon can learn. It does have counters for both of these, yes, but at the same time, you're not able to get off some of these counters before you're already being attacked by a water type move. I mean, as a whole, water type Pokemon tend to have fairly high speed and defense. Even though Incineroar does have decent attack, the main problem that it has is its speed. As well as that, its move pool, while diverse, is not nearly as comprehensive as the other 2 on this list. And if you haven't guessed them by now, you just haven't been keeping up with some of the better generations of Pokemon. Now, moving up to the 3rd out of the 8 best, or 8 total, Fire Starter 3rd evolutions, we have Charizard. Now, for the purposes of this list, I've been deliberately ignoring Mega Evolutions as well as Dynamax/Gigantamaxing, and it's for good reason. Those features, while good for the games that they're in, I don't think are fair when we compare these type of Pokemon, and especially in Generation 8, where the only thing Gigantamax does is alters moves that you already have, which it's kind of hard to factor in G-Max moves into this anyway because it would be totally unfair, but the only thing it increases is your health. Mega Evolution, on the other hand, is limited to the amount of Pokemon that are able to do it, as well as it boosts all of your stats, which you'd think would be good, but in the grand scheme of things is just, it tends to be unbalanced. It forms a really divisive meta, as well as something very limited by the amount of Pokemon that have access to this capability, which I just want to ignore with this list. And so Charizard is number 3. If we were including Mega Evolutions, I will say that Charizard would be either 1st or 2nd on this list, but without it, it is 3rd. One of the main problems I have with Charizard is the hype behind it. It has received a Gigantamax evolution, it has received an X and Y different variation, one of 2 Pokemon that have achieved this very rare, notable status, the other being Mewtwo, who had his own movie, which is just, absolutely crazy. Now, Charizard has a very diverse move pool, as being the only fire-flying Pokemon on this list. This also sets it up to be a little bit weaker to some of the things that you wouldn't expect fire Pokemon to be weak to, such as electricity. It is weak because fire, I don't think, has a resistance to electricity at all. As well as this, it also regains the effectiveness that ice has against it, which While not a huge deal, there are many competitive Pokemon that can learn Ice-type moves, and it is something that especially Ultra Beasts can learn. So if you are comparing this in a competitive setting, then Ice types are still going to be fairly viable against Charizard. And especially when you consider that Charizard's speed is middle of the road. It's not anything to write home about, but it's not nearly as bad as something like Incineroar or Mbor. So by having this mid-tier speed, you have really two options. One of which is to have somebody set you up with Reflect or Light Screen, which is definitely going to absorb some of those harder hitting moves. The other option is to only use Charizard in situations where it's not going to be at that kind of disadvantage. One of its many type advantages, however, is the complete disregard for ground types. Ground types cannot hit Charizard unless they use the ability, I believe it's Smackdown, or they somehow swap items with Charizard to give him something very heavy that would pull him to the ground. There are items that do this, such as I believe the Iron Ball. In those cases, yes, but 99% of the time Charizard cannot be hit by ground type moves, which is huge. However, this also makes him 4 times weak to rock, which throughout the games is a very common type. I mean, every time you go into a cave, you're more than likely to be facing rock types. I believe every single game has a rock type gym or a rock type Elite Four member, as well as there are many Pokemon that can learn rock type moves. There's a lot of Pokemon that can learn Rock Tomb, which also would lower Charizard's speed as well and be 4 times as effective, which combine that with a very hard hitting Pokemon such as Tyranitar. I mean, competitively and casually, Charizard definitely is a bit of a sponge. It just simply takes so many hits from so many different angles, and that's why it ranks a little bit lower than the other two on our list. The stats for it are balanced, and it actually, fun fact, has the exact same stats as Typhlosion, same distribution and everything, just different typing and different move pools. So yeah, Charizard is 3rd on our list. Moving up to number 2, and this one is going to be from the much hyped Sinnoh region, and this is going to be Infernape, the 3rd evolution of Chimchar. Now, this is the middle of the fire fighting chain that occurred from generations 3 through generation 5. And Infernape is a very weird case of the other 2 starters possessing very uncommon characteristics, such as water, steel, and grass, ground, something that we hadn't seen before. But with Infernape, it was something we'd already seen, so there was a lot less hype behind it leading up to release. As well as the anime sort of tending to focus less on it, meaning a lot of the casual Pokemon fans didn't really think as much about Infernape as they did about other characters, Torterra's, or even the Piplup that Dawn has. This leads to Infernape kind of being less considered when it comes in the running of great fire types. But amazingly, it has some of the best coverage moves, I think, out of any fire type Pokemon. As well as that, I think its stats definitely promote some of these moves. I think it's a well-built Pokemon, and I honestly think it is the best out of the Sinnoh starters. The only thing you really have to watch out for is that now, by having Torterra with the ground type, it does have something to fight back against Infernape with. But really, when you look at it, there's quite a lot that Infernape can use to counter with, because Infernape can learn Solar Beam. It also, Torterra only has a one-time effectiveness against, or one-time defense against fire due to the ground typing. So that means that fire type moves, and actually Infernape can learn some of the strongest fire type moves in any of the games. I believe it can learn Flare Blitz, even Flamethrower, Fire Punch. I mean, pretty much any fire type move that Infernape can learn, it's going to be hitting hard with. As well as, by having the fighting type against the steel type, it does give a slight edge over Empoleon, who does not have any kind of defense against fighting types, which means that in most cases Infernape can beat out Torterra and Empoleon with its typing, which is awesome. Now, compared to the others on this list, it does have a better move pool, better coverage, and it definitely can cover some of the holes in its defense just a little bit better than some of the others on this list. But there's one Pokemon that outranks Infernape, and if you guessed it before this video started, you get a cookie. This is Blaziken. Now, even factoring in Mega Evolutions, Blaziken would still beat Charizard. Blaziken is the first of the firefighting Pokemon, the third evolution of Torchic, introduced in Generation 3, brought back again in every single generation since, as well as also being a starter in the 6th generation in the Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire games. Now, Blaziken has the distinct honor of being one of the best Pokemon in the game, from a casual standpoint, at least. With its move pool, it is actually more set up as a fighting type than the other two firefighting types on this list. It almost seems like it should be primarily a fighting type with the fire typing behind it as the secondary type. And the thing with Blaziken is that its stats are just that much better than Infernape. With better stats, better coverage moves, and also better moves with better accuracy. That's one of the big things. Infernape's moves, while they are high power, tend to be lower in accuracy that it can learn from TMs and from natural leveling up. Blaziken can learn some more accurate moves as well as learning just overall better moves, which does place it ahead of Infernape. Now, another advantage that Blaziken has over Infernape is in being one of my favorite Pokemon games, that being Sapphire, which was the first Pokemon game I ever beat, so it'll always hold a special place in my heart. But I think statistically, as well as in terms of its move pool, Blaziken just stands above all of the rest on this list. I honestly think in a one-on-one fight at level 100, with the best move pool possible, it could take on any other member of this list, except Mbor, in a situation where it's set up where Mbor would have higher speed for some reason. And that's only because Mbor has access to Scout, which is one of the only things that keeps it anywhere near relevancy in any case in the Unova games. But even then, Blaziken's just gonna outspeed him and kick his face in. So there you have it. That is the 8 Pokemon that are fire starters, the third evolutions of which that were ranked. If you agree with this list, make sure to drop a like. If you disagree with this, drop a like, and also comment down below on what you think. My name is Phil, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Thank you.